And I'm back. And today, what I've got here is a 2003 F-150. Headed out for a drive the other day, drove a couple 100 miles, got home, smelled a bit of antifreeze. So in the morning, what I did was I came out here and looked, and the reservoir is completely empty. The overflow for the radiator is completely empty. And so I get under here, and as you can see here, I've got coolant, the green liquid here. The coolant is dripped out of somewhere, and you know that I've lost probably a gallon of coolant somewhere, so there's quite a leak. So the first thing I got looking at was the hoses, thinking, okay, I must have a hose that's leaked or something, but couldn't see any hoses that were leaking. I looked at the bottom of the reservoir, that hose looked okay. And then I thought, maybe it's a head gasket or something, maybe it's gone into the oil. So I checked the oil's nice and clean. So I got under here, and I looked up, and it's almost impossible to see it from under here. Okay. So yeah, when I checked this after my trip, it was empty, okay? And I could smell antifreeze down on the engine. Double check here. Let's put some water in here. All right, now, where's that leak coming from there? Is that just the water running down the frame? Oh, that's quite a drip there. Where's that coming from? Huh? Wow, it's really leaking somewhere. Look at the water coming off it there. Wow. Look at the water coming here. It's just pouring out. Wow. Let's see if we can figure out where that's coming out of. Huh. Wow, that's a steady stream out of there. Wow. Ah, where's that coming from? Yeah, it's just running right down the front of the block. Okay, go ahead, assistant, and pour some water in. You see water trickling there on the bottom of the water pump? It's either coming out of that chamber, the weep chamber, or it's coming out just above it. You see that? See the water trickling there? Running across the surface. And then what it does is it runs down the front of the engine. It's just coming out steady here. Look at that. See that? Runs across the front of the block right here, in front of the oil pan. You can see it right there. So that's where it's coming from. So I'm gonna take out the rad and move a few things out of the way until I can get to that pump. Okay, we'll start that in a minute. Okay, so I brought the truck up on my ramps here. I got the back wheel blocked. And what I'm going to start doing here is I'm going to take this shroud off and get ready to dig down in here and get at the water pump. I'm going to take out the drive belt. First thing I'm going to do is disconnect the battery. Okay, I got the shroud off over the radiator. I've disconnected the battery. Okay, now to remove the fan clutch, you might need to buy a holder. And what the holder looks like is this right here, okay? They're not that much. They're like $20 at most of those, parts stores. They'll have this. And what it does is you put it down here and you grab onto two of the bolts that hold the water pump pulley on. You hold that and you jam it against something. And at the same time you put this is just under 1.5 inches. I've got an 1.5 inch wrench here and it worked on it, so I'm not quite sure the size, but it worked. and it's a right-hand thread, so you just hold the water pump pulley from spinning and back this off. Okay, and without that holder, you might be able to jam something across a couple of those bolts and hold it, but this holding tool makes it that much easier, so it's kind of a good thing to have in your toolbox anyway. You know, you're not going to use it that often, but okay, so that's now the fan clutch is loose. I'm going to back that off. We're going to release the fan from the water pump pulley. Okay, and to get the shroud and the fan out, all you got to do is there's two little 8mm bolts, one on either side of the top of the rad shroud, one here, one on the other side. Take those out. That'll come right up. So once you get that loose, you can pull the shroud towards the engine, up and towards the engine, and then you can just pull the fan up. Pull it right up out of that hole. You've got that out of there. Okay, there, I got the fan shroud, the fan and the fan clutch out of there. Now I'm looking down at where the water pump is. You know, the water pump's right in here. And I can see where there's enough room, conceivably, to change the water pump without having to remove the rad. But because I've got to disconnect all the hoses on it and everything anyway, it's just a few more steps. And I'm going to take the rad out of there, and that way I protect the rad from any damage while I'm working in here. It gives me a little bit extra room. So I've disconnected the overflow jug, and I've got the hose disconnected here, and it's loose on the water pump there, and I've got the top disconnected here. So all I've got left to do is I've got two 10mm bolts right here, one on either side, and then I'm going to lift the rad right out. And there's the overflow and the rad. That just came right up out of the truck. Actually a good idea to get it out anyway. Look, I can clean it up a bit too while I've got it out. Okay. That gives me quite a bit more room to get at the water pump. I still have to be careful of the condenser that stays in here. I'm not going to take that out because it means disrupting the coolant charge in the AC. I'm not going to do that. But now, see, I got this much room to work at. Now I'm going to take off the serpentine belt and the water pump pulley and see if I can work at those bolts to get that water pump out of there. Okay, just a little bit of detail here. There's a bracket here under the AC pump and to the power steering pump, and it's over the flange for the water pump, so that's got to come off. So there's just two nuts on the top here, and there was a 15mm head on these two bolts here. But this bolt won't come all the way out because of the pulley on the power steering pump. That bolt won't come all the way out because of the pulley. Get the rest of these off, and this will just wiggle out of the way, and that'll give me enough room to get in there and get the rest of these bolts out for the water pump, and then I can put the new one in there, and this doesn't have to come all the way out, so we don't have to take off the power steering pump to get this out. We'll just leave it like that. So you see that bolt came out so far and hit up against here. Okay, just wanted to show you that. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, another little detail here. There's a 15mm nut here. It's bringing a stud out of the water pump, and it come up against the tensioner pulley. So I'm taking the tensioner pulley off, and it's left-hand thread. Okay, so if you were trying to take that off and if you're going the other way, you'd probably break the bolt off. So left-hand thread, that like that. Off that comes. And then this stud I had loosened is going to come out now, right there. Okay. Now, gotta get a pan under there. I can see some fluid coming out of there. 1 second. Okay, so there's some 15mm nuts that come off of these studs here. There's 15s here. A couple of 15s over here, one top and bottom, and then most of the rest of these are 10s, and there's an 8 up on top here. Okay, there's another detail here. There's a tube that sticks out of the top of the water pump. Okay, a water tube that sticks up here, and it's held on by an 8mm bolt right here. So I've just used a long extension and taken that out. Okay, I got all the bolts loosened. Okay, Okay, that little pipe, if you pull the pump down far enough, that little pipe will just pull out right here, and you don't have to disconnect any of the hoses up here that it's connected to. There's three hoses connected to that upper pipe, one on this side and two over here on the left. Okay, so that just pulled right out of the pump. There's an O-ring on it. Okay, let's see. All right, and wiggle it here a little bit. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so there's a weep hole on top. I think there's another weep hole underneath here. That's where the water was coming out. Let me see. See here? Yeah, look at that. There is a weep hole. See right in there? There's a weep hole right in there. That's where it was coming out. Okay, so we've pretty much determined that the seal, the internal seal in this pump is gone, and that's what was happening. It was leaking out. So, okay, diagnosis correct. Okay, so we got that out. Gonna have to clean up the gasket surfaces in there, and I'm waiting for a new pump to arrive. So, got that far. Okay, we'll pick up when we get the new pump and show you how we put that back together. Over and out.